Hello, all of you wonderful people. Thank you for tuning in. Dicey Logic is a channel for daring adventurers who may not always use their heads. We have several things in store for you here. Wonders of this channel include an ongoing podcast, stories of brave adventures, and maybe a few other things. We'll just have to see where the road takes us. You can vote with your views, or, we could just roll a d20. Either way, welcome to Dicey Logic. Today, I have a tale to tell, or rather, a yarn to spin, so let me set the stage. We have 5 players in this game. We have our gnome, a prolific bard of adult amusements named Aethrios. We have a human cleric, Alexia, a fetchling magic user named Vinya, a dwarven warrior, Ednia, and finally, the character that was both the dumbest and the smartest, our half-orc barbarian whose name goes down in legend as Nex Runecaster. Now, I'm going to sidetrack a little bit here. Nex is one of the best, if not the best, player character in any campaign I have run, and I will definitely talk more about him in the future. But for now, this story should give a good idea of how this campaign in general went. Our intrepid heroes are off to a mountain where rumors abound of an ancient temple filled with strange magics. To get there, they have to cross through a desert, and the only waypoint is a town called Tiny Town. The players had hired a carriage driver to take them to the mountain, and he insisted on stopping in town. You see, he had been there 10 years before, and in his experience, you needed to stop in this tiny town named Tiny Town. I wasn't very good at coming up with names back then, was I? Anyway, they start approaching the town, and then they see the biggest sign that they've ever seen in their lives. Welcome to Tiny Town. A massive gate opens up, and they ride into a town that is not anything close to what their driver has been describing to them. Everywhere are signs and lights and gambling dens. In 10 years' time, Tiny Town has basically become Vegas and home to thousands. It's not a small town anymore, to say the least. The players stopped, amused and stunned, and this is when they had the honor of meeting the mayor of Tiny Town. Her name was Annabelle Lee, and by gosh, golly, was she ever happy to have some new visitors to her humble little town. Yes, yes, yes. And she'd be damned if she didn't give y'all a little old tour. Now, she showed the players many things. Eateries, casinos, and the like, but the most important thing she showed them was the world's biggest ball of yarn. And she singled out Nex. You look like the strong type. If you can lift this ball of yarn, I'll give you a whole 10 gold pieces. Now, Nex had thousands of gold pieces on him from character creation. Just gold that was never spent. It actually forced me to implement a rule later on saying, hey, you have to spend all except a certain amount of gold when you're creating your character. But anyway, he had no need for any more gold. But, that didn't stop him. In fact, he wasn't actually after gold. He was bored. So, he agreed. After all, it was just a ball of yarn. How heavy could it be? I mean, it was a big ball of yarn. The biggest in the world. But still. Now, the player, Sheila, rolled a strength check. With this roll, she rolled a massive, a massive 1. A natural 1. So I ended up describing what happens with this natural 1. Nex mightily lifts the ball of yarn until it rocks back and traps him underneath it. He did not get that. I rolled a d4 to see how long he was under there, and luckily it was only an hour. His friends weren't any help, though. Aethrios, our bard, immediately started taking bets on how long it would take to get Nex free, and made about 100 gold, especially with Vinya, the fetchling, acting as a carnival caller. Now, this annoyed the mayor to no end, And since Aethrios was the one initiating, at least from her perspective, she pulled Aethrios aside and whispered, "I don't think y'all know how things work in this here town. The only one that makes money in this town is me. So y'all and your friends best be gone by sunup, yes, 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 and I don't ever expect to see you here again." And so our players, Aethrios especially, decided that they were going to react to this threat. They just weren't sure how yet. In the meantime, they decided to check to see if they could see the mountaintop from a very convenient tower that had been built on the edge of town. When they got there, our adventurers discovered that it was going to cost them a full 100 gold to climb the tower. So skipping this, they went to go eat something and ended up in a fantasy bar that was, I'll be honest here, it was just Buffalo Wild Wings. Here, there were several people from the town, and Aethrios was starting to get a plan going. You see, in this bar, there were several of the miners who used to go out to the mountain and back, but with all the tourism, it just wasn't as profitable, so they were out of work. Aethrios convinced the miners to fight back against the new mayor, and the miners left, pumped up and ready to fight. Nex, being the half-orc that he wasn't really interested in any of this fight against the mayor stuff. He just wanted to make friends who were orcs. And so he did a quick check, and yeah, there were some orcs over having an arm wrestling contest, and so Nex decided he wanted in on this. And his friends, with nothing better to do at this particular moment, they all decided they were going to help him out. Each of them gave him some sort of buff before he went over. Then Nex introduced himself to the group's leader, who had been unbeaten, and his name was Meat, because he liked to eat meat. Meat was twice the size of Nex. But Nex didn't care. He was just happy to have orcs to play with. So they get all set up, and Aethrios, being the gnomish bard that they were, started taking bets. Hardly anyone put money on Nex. In fact, I think the only people that did were the players. So, most of the people in the bar, they had seen Meat's record, and Nex did not look anywhere close to Meat's level, we should say. Now, Sheila, the player, rolled strength. I rolled strength for Meat. And in the kind of strange luck that really only happens at these types of tabletop games, Sheila rolled high, and Meat rolled low. Still, it was really close. It was 25 to 24 in favor of Nex. The orcs started cheering. The bar erupted in emotion. The orcs took Nex over to their secret clubhouse meeting place thing, and in the commotion, the party learned that there was a resistance movement in town that was meeting up that night. Aethrios, while this was all going on, had been trying to convince more people to revolt against the mayor. So the group decided that this whole situation could work out very well for the revenge plan that they had on the town. Nex was declared the leader of the orcs right then and there, and Alexia told Nex, bring the orcs to the town square by midnight. This is where the ball of yarn was. And so Nex was taken off, and the other players ended up in a secret meeting hall where this resistance movement was meeting. There, a speaker was talking to the crowd of hundreds. Now, the players, they were up front, and they listened to this man whip up the crowd, get that fervor going, but it was obvious that these people had no plans to actually do anything. So Aethrios took the stage, and they used the crowd's energy to their advantage, saying that we need to act now against this menace of a mayor. And the crowd was ready to go. This was a hell of a speech, but they were still hesitant. They weren't ready to commit, at least not yet. And when the players didn't think that they were going to get these wannabe rebels to actually rebel, Ednia yelled to the crowd, "Free beer! Free beer!" and got the crowd chanting. And this, of course, did it. The crowd ran out the door, rioting in the streets, and headed for the symbol of the mayor's reign in the town square, the world's biggest ball of yarn that the mayor had used originally as a draw to the town. Meanwhile, Nex was brought before a group of 1,000 orcs. They were all meeting up tonight for community and to express their own concerns about the mayor. Meat, the former leader, stood before them and told them all how Nex was stronger than any of them. You see, Meat was their previous leader, and by beating Meat in a contest... Okay, I know, I heard it when I said it. But by doing this, he was crowned the new leader of the orcs of Tiny Town, and Nex complained to them about the ball of yarn and suggested that they burn it to the ground. Now, the orcs loved this plan. Many of them had taken the same challenge and failed in similarly spectacular ways. And so the orcs took to the street chanting in unison, "Fuck the yarn!" The orcs unknowingly were going to the same place that the resistance was going to. Only the players knew that these were all gonna come together. Now, on the way, the resistance managed to gather up a crowd of a few thousand with their cries of, "Free beer! Kill the mayor!" And they all ended up meeting up at the ball of yarn, and Nex lit it on fire with a magic torch that was given to him by the orcs. And using the orcs' strength and the people's rage, they began to roll it through the town to the mayor's mansion, lighting everything on fire. Now, I want you for a moment to imagine being the mayor right now. You hear some noise outside, you get curious, you open up your window, and on the wind you pick up, "Fuck the yarn, kill the mayor, free beer! Fuck the yarn, kill the mayor, free beer!" Just louder and louder. And you can see the flames spreading through this town that you've built up from just a few hundred people. Your ball of yarn, the original draw to people to visit, is on fire and being rolled straight towards your mansion. Now, what this angry crowd of rioters and orcs did to her, I'm gonna leave as an exercise for the listener. The players, satisfied with the damage that they had caused and the near complete and total destruction of the town, headed back to the tower where visitors could see the mountain. No one was around to sell tickets. No one was around to force them to pay. The only person at the top was one guard, who next seemed to stab for no reason other than he felt like it. And also, I think the telescopes required a copper piece to use, and the guard had some. From the top of the tower, they looked out over the town as the flames spread and the town burned. All because of Nex and a ball of yarn. And as they left just before sunup, Aethrios remarked, "Hey, we were gone before sunup. Yes, yes, yes." And when they got back to town after their adventure, the orcs had made a statue of Nex and named the statue as mayor. Everyone was fine with this, especially Nex. After all, a statue isn't going to try to scam people. And with that, dear listener, I hope you enjoyed the tale of Nex and the Ball of Yarn. For more stories like this, feel free to like, subscribe, and join our Soultron, where you can donate your soul to Dicey Logic. This is Vera of Dicey Logic signing off, and I hope to see you again next time.